Hello YouTube, it's Carlos the Rook, and I'm bringing you round 7 from the World Open 2026 that I played in Washington DC 2 weeks ago. And in round 6, I think I'm 4 wins, 1 draw, and, 1 draw and 1 loss. So I'm still in the money, I just need to win the rest of the games. So in round 7, I'm 1667 with the black pieces, with the white pieces, and I'm going against Ishan. 1723, he has the black pieces. So we start off e4. He goes e5, and I get excited. We might get a Spanish. You know, this is my favorite. Knight f3, knight c6, we have a Spanish. Bishop b5, knight f6. So I got a little down when I say knight f6. It looks like he's going into the Berlin defense. So it's a really drawish. So I castle. He goes d6. And I go rook e1. And my idea is trying to transpose into the Shigorin since he's not playing the Berlin proper. So he goes bishop e7. I go c3. He castles. And I go h3 here. a6. Bishop a4. Now we're in Shigorin territory. And here he goes rook e8. And that's not the proper move. Bishop b5 was b5 was a better move, putting the bishop back, followed by knight a5. So I go d4, just challenging the center right away. He captures, I capture back, and here he goes d5. So the engine doesn't like this idea. I push past him with e5. The knight comes forward. I go knight on b to d2, and the engine's saying I should have went knight c3 instead, but in a different line, it liked the knight b to d2, so I went with this move. So the knight takes. I take back with the bishop, and now he goes b5. I move the bishop to c2, and he goes bishop e6, and that's a blunder. I immediately see the tactic. Bishop captures h7, king captures h7, queen c2, picking up the knight, and I win a pawn. So I wasn't sure if this was enough for a win, but the engine got it completely winning with white up 2.11. So I end up going for it. Bishop captures, king captures, queen c2 check, king goes back to g8, and I take on c6. And now my idea is just put pressure on this c pawn. And he goes queen d7. I move the rook over. I don't want to trade queens. And he moved the rook over to protect the pawn. And I go bishop a5, putting more pressure on the pawn. So I'm really locking in here, and I really like my position. The Stockfish likes my position also. It has it up 2.55. And so he goes rook a7. Like his pieces are really uncoordinated, trying to protect this pawn. He's already down 1 pawn. If this pawn falls, he's completely losing. So I go rook c2 with the idea to double up the rooks. The engine didn't like that. The engine wants, now it's saying a3, but last time I looked at it, it was saying just b4. And if the queen takes, the rook takes, and the rooks can double up on this file, and this just locks in the c pawn. And I really didn't like that, but the whole point is c5 can never get hit. You can go c6, but this just clamps down on the position, and you never go on c5. It just locks in the weakness. And now that makes sense, now that my coach explained it to me. Uh, so I went rook c2 in error. Queen takes, rook takes, the bishop hits, rook go back, the pawn hits, and I thought about rook b3, but c5, I really didn't like that, so I just went rook c2, inviting the bishop to come, and then I go back. So here he plays rook b7. His idea is to try and capture my bishop. So I double up the rooks, telling him I'm going to take over here. So he goes c6. And now I go knight d2. And my idea is to bring the knight over here to protect the bishop. So he goes bishop g5, pinning the knight. And now I go a3. My idea is you take, I take, and it breaks the pin. So he goes b3. And he's thinking that he's forcing my rook away from the knight, but my rook goes up here, and the knight's protected by the bishop. So my position holds. Now he goes bishop e7, hitting the rook. And so I fall back to c3. And if the bishop comes back there, I can just move a rook, and I'm good. And that's exactly what happens. He goes bishop back, and I go rook d1. And the knight's protected. And with the next move, I'm threatening to take this pawn over here. So he goes rook on c to b8, doubling up to protect the pawn. And here I go bishop b4, just blocking off the rooks from the pawn. Now the pawn can fall. And here he comes up with a really good move. It's desperation, but he goes a5. And his idea is to hold on to this pawn at all costs. And it's deflecting the bishop in order to hold on to the pawn. And so I thought about bishop d6, and Stockfish wants bishop d6. It wants bishop d6. It's saying bishop captures d2. Rook captures d2. Rook a8. And then just a4. And it has this position completely winning for white. And there's no way for black to get any real counterplay. The bishop locks down that position. This rook is going to come to d3, and this pawn falls. And when this pawn falls, either this rook runs or it has to come off the board, and then these pawns march. And I looked at bishop d6, and I just thought that the move I played was better. Stockfish disagrees. I captures on a5, taking another pawn. So now I'm up 2 pawns clean. And here you go, bishop f5. And his idea is just to lock in to c2 and hit the rook so that way he can take the knight. So I take on c6. And that way when what I'm doing is I'm clearing the rook so the bishop protects this knight. So the bishop comes to c2, locking in here. And I go rook e1. And here you go rook a7. Now I looked at bishop c3, and I started seeing ghosts with rook captures a3. And at this point, my opponent is like a 9-year-old child, and he's crying. He begged me for a draw like 3 times. I declined all 3 times, and he keeps walking away from the board for like 15 minutes at a time, like he don't want to play the game. And I get distracted. I started daydreaming, and when he came back and finally made this move, rook a7, I wasn't focused. So I thought initially bishop c3, and what I didn't like about bishop c3 was rook captures a3, pawn captures, bishop captures, pawn here, and then this pawn's coming in. But Stockfish says just rook captures c2, and then this pawn comes in, you take it. Queen, take, and white's up a piece and up pawns. And if he goes this way, instead of taking the knight, it's just knight to b1, and you just blockade. And next you go bishop b4, and white holds the position easily. Another alternative is knight f3. No, knight f3, just hitting the bishop. If you take my bishop, I take your bishop. And this position is completely winning for white. So I missed both of those, well, I seen bishop c3, but I just thought that wasn't good because the pawn was going to push in for a forced queen, but I just take it. So I played bishop b4, which is a complete blunder. Because you get rook captures b4. And here, I can play, no, not this. I can play rook captures, rook check, king moves, knight f3, hitting the bishop. And now the bishop hangs with check and the rook is hanging. So you can only save one piece. Rook c4, I take the bishop with check, king g6, rook captures c4, d captures c4, knight f3, and white is drawn. It would have been drawn. I could have saved the position of being drawn. Instead, I instantly took back. A captures b4, which is losing. Bishop captures here. I go rook f1. Bishop captures here, and I just panic. I'm like, oh my god! I went from completely winning to completely losing. I lost focus, was daydreaming because the kid kept wandering off from the game multiple times for 15 minutes at a time, and I just didn't focus in on the win. I just thought it was over with. And here, my idea was rook c1 with the idea that, let's say he moved the bishop here or something, then I take twice, but even this is losing. And I would try and play the pawns against the bishop, but the bishop just controls the dark squares, and I never can. All I gotta do is put the rook here, and then the bishop just controls this square, and this pawn never advances. Even if I was to pull my king over, I'm just weak on the dark squares, and I can never control it. So that's what I had in mind, but I even played that wrong. I just went rook captures c2. He went bishop captures c2, rook c1, rook c7, king f1, bishop d2, and here I resigned. And I was completely devastated. I had this game completely won, and if I would have won it, I would have stayed in the running for the money. It was $12,000 online, and I would have been in the running to catch up with the first place players. I just needed to win this game and the last two games, and I'd have been in the running. So I was crushed. I couldn't even sleep at night. I was just completely crushed. This was a harsh blow, but it's a lesson to stay focused when winning. You have to stay focused and watch. Like, even when you win it, your opponent's trying to save the game and they're looking for everything they can find to come up with a tactic. So you got to watch for tactics when you win it and just stay humble and stay hungry. Thank you for watching. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Tell your friends and family, and let's grow the channel. Have a nice day. Bye.